very good morning to you. You're watching Times Now Live. I'm Pratibha. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's hours after the big meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. A lot happened in the press briefing, a grand joint address, a reaffirmation of ties and the strong message to the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the U.S. President Donald Trump stood side by side, showcasing the India-U.S. relations at an all-time high. And President Trump also spoke about Prime Minister Modi, calling him a very special man, pledging to bolster military sales to India and vowing to address the disparities and resolve the tariff issues. While Prime Minister Modi thanked Trump for the extradition of Tawahu Rana, the two leaders spoke about the commitment to combat terrorism together.
जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं, यानी मागा प्लस मीगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी। इसरो और नासा के आपसी सहयोग से बनाई निसार सैटेलाइट शीघ्र ही भारतीय लॉन्च व्हीकल पर अंतरिक्ष की उड़ान भरेगी। आज हमने द्विपक्षीय व्यापार को 2030 तक 2 गुना से भी अधिक बढ़ाकर $500 बिलियन तक पहुंचाने का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है। अमेरिका और भारत मिलकर के हमारी कोशिश है और हमारी कोशिश रहनी चाहिए कि इस प्रकार की पूरी इकोसिस्टम को हमें जड़ मूल से नष्ट करना चाहिए ताकि ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग बंद हो।
Anywhere in the world, they've been very strong on tariffs, and I don't blame them necessarily, but it's a different way of doing business. It's very hard to sell into India because they have trade barriers, very strong tariffs. We are right now a reciprocal nation. We are going to, if it's India or if it's somebody else with low tariffs, we're going to have the same. We're going to have whatever India charges, we're charging them. Whatever another country charges, we're charging them. So it's called reciprocal, which I think is a very fair. Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also paving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters. As you said, we're giving a very violent man, it seems to me. I mean, I don't know that he's been convicted yet or will be, but let's assume he's a pretty violent person. We're giving him back to India immediately, and there are more to follow because we have quite a few requests. So we work with India on crime.
Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest. Okay?
So Trump calling Prime Minister Modi a tough negotiator, saying he's a much better negotiator than me. He also addressed Prime Minister Modi as his friend time and again during the entire visit. He said that he is a great leader. Joining us live on the broadcast from Washington, D.C. is Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan. Rishabh is also on the broadcast with us. But Madhav, as the MEA said, this is a short but a very substantive visit. A host of issues being spoken of by Prime Minister Modi as well as the U.S. President. Key takeaways for India. One of the biggest highlights, of course, is going to be the extradition of Tawahu Rana.
Well, Pratibha, in fact, well, absolutely. In fact, Tawahu Rana has been a long pending demand really for India. Remember, the attack took place in 2008 and 26/11 is perhaps one of the worst terror attacks that have taken place. In that sense, getting the mastermind, the plotter Tawahu Rana back on Indian soil to ensure justice in that particular case close to 17 years after the incident took place is certainly a massive win for the Modi government. The Trump administration also indicating that it perhaps would not be only Tawahu Rana, but there are other requests as well that have been made, and all of those requests would very clearly be considered by the U.S. administration. There are, of course, a number of individuals and associations and organizations which have been working against the interest of India, have been making threatening statements as well. So that certainly is a massive takeaway. But the huge amounts and the large swath of areas in which cooperation has been announced today is actually very significant. We're talking about AI, we're talking about semiconductors, sectors. We're talking about joint defense manufacturing between India as well as U.S. companies, and that really is a huge takeaway. President Trump also talking about billions of dollars of purchases by India as far as defense hardware is concerned. Now, what that entails, F-35 is something that certainly has been proposed by the United States. India hasn't yet officially confirmed it because Vikram Misri, the Foreign Secretary, while briefing the press a short while ago, said that any purchase requires a certain process, and this kind of a high-tech fighter, a stealth fighter, certainly that process has to begin. At the moment, no such process that has been discussed because there are a number of considerations. We don't know if there are any strings attached to the purchase of an advanced fighter like the F-35. There is, of course, the larger issue of India procuring weapons from Russia as well. Whether there would be any such conditions or strings attached remains to be seen. But the overall really mood, of course, as far as this entire visit is concerned, is that a lot more could be done. Remember, for instance, tariffs is an issue which the United States and particularly President Trump has been talking about, saying that the huge amount of tariffs imposed by India makes it very difficult for U.S. companies to compete. But at the same time, it is a fact that there's also talk of a trade deal between the two countries, and if that really takes place, that could, of course, set the ball rolling on that issue as well. Remember that there was a similar negotiation in the first Trump regime, and now it appears that there is a similar attempt being made, both sides hoping that by fall this year, that trade agreement between India and United States can be finalized. So many takeaways. The camaraderie, the bonhomie that was seen between the two leaders, perhaps best characterized by the fact that Trump said that Prime Minister Modi is the best negotiator. Prime Minister Modi also saying that when there is the word deal, then the first name that it is associated with is President Trump. And clearly, of course, that really is the spirit with which these negotiations are, or these talks have happened at the bilateral level, of course, in a restricted session, that is, of course, one-on-one between PM Modi and President Trump, and also at the delegation level over dinner earlier this year. Prime Minister Modi, of course, returning this evening to India. But clearly, of course, a lot of areas on which the two countries can work together, whether it's immigration, whether it's tariffs, all of these challenging areas as well. The roadmap into how this will be resolved quite clear from the statements of the two leaders. Back to you, Pratibha.
Okay, all right. Madhav, thank you for joining us. It's about 9:30 p.m. there in Washington. In just about half an hour's time from now, the Prime Minister is all set to return. He's concluded his successful U.S. visit. Rishabh, apart from the personal equation that we saw between the two leaders, with President Trump speaking about Prime Minister Modi being his friend, there were also a few thorny issues that India had to tackle, including illegal immigration as well as the trade tariff. A lot of conversations around it, and President Trump also made a mention of it, especially as far as the trade tariff is concerned. Has India tided over this bump, or is it going to be a long set of negotiations that are going to come up?
Well, see, the reciprocal tariff that Donald Trump has been talking about is not something that can be done overnight. And we heard in the joint statement from both the leaders as well that India and US will take the bilateral trade to a whooping, 500 billion US dollar by 2030. And also how the trade deficit will be looked into. So the negotiations will go on. And it is something that has given, at least a breather to India as well after this visit, that both the countries will negotiate on it and there won't be any unilateral action being taken by United States. That was being feared by many, here in India as well. That is something that is very important. Apart from that, illegal immigration is something that is, being discussed. India has always been of the side that legal mobility is something that should be promoted, that should be substantiated and supported. Illegal mobility is something that should not happen. India has always been talking about it, and today we heard the Foreign Secretary as well that the ecosystem that facilitates the illegal mobility should be tackled, should be plugged in and ensured that they do not exist, and that is something that India has been in view of. India was among the first countries when Donald Trump came up with the idea of deporting illegal immigrants. We did ask this to MEA as well, that there are Indians who are illegal immigrant in United States. They have been identified. Will India be okay to take them back? India was back then, and India is today ready to take any illegal immigrant. Condition their identity is proven. Last time when we asked this to Foreign Secretary Pratibha, I'm just taking 30 more seconds. Last time when we asked Foreign Secretary, he said that there are presumed 487 illegal Indian immigrants in the United States. Their identities are being looked into. If proven Indian, they will be brought back. So definitely thorny, but well dealt.
Okay, all right. So India is saying that the return of illegal immigrants is not the end of the story, that there's a bigger ecosystem at play, and both India and United States must work together for that. I request you to stay with us. Let's play out highlights of the joint address by the MEM.
This is an issue on which the U.S. authorities have taken very clear decisions. I think you've seen the President announce it himself from the White House podium, the decision of the United States to extradite him. It's reflected there in the joint statement as well. We are working on the logistics of this, his surrender and extradition to India. There are a few final steps to be completed. The two sides are in touch on this particular issue. Yes, it did figure during the discussions today, and the Prime Minister said, as I think he mentioned during the press conference as well, and during the discussions also, he said that India has made its stand very clear that if there are illegal immigrants proven to be Indian citizens in any country abroad, we will take them back. But he did emphasize, and again I think he referred to this in his remarks at the press conference, but even during the discussions, he did emphasize that the return of illegal immigrants is not the end of the story. There is an ecosystem that thrives on this racket and that promotes and enables this racket. And it is the responsibility of both countries to do something about this.